All right, everyone. So you've been laser focused on your research, right? Burning the midnight oil to get those findings just right. But getting published in a top-tier journal, like the Journal of Global Marketing, that's a whole other beast, isn't it?
It really is,
Yeah.
yeah. The competition is fierce.
So to help us crack the code today, we're doing a deep dive into a recent episode from the journal's own podcast featuring Editor-in-Chief Dr. Ajay Manrai. He had some really great insights to share about what it takes to get published in this particular journal.
Yeah, he really pulled back the curtain. I was actually really surprised by how candid he was.
Let's jump right in then. First things first, just in case you aren't familiar with this journal, why don't you give us a little background on it?
Sure. So the Journal of Global Marketing has been around since 1988, and it's published by Routledge as part of the Taylor and Francis Group. It's considered, one of the top journals in the field. They focus on publishing leading-edge research on, well, global marketing, advancing both theory and practice. And they have a pretty wide reach because they're indexed in a bunch of prestigious databases like ABDC, JQL, CABS, and AJG. Not to mention, it's ranked as a Q1 journal by Scopus.
Okay, so we're talking about a journal with a long history of excellence here.
Yeah, definitely. And it also offers open access, so the research published there is available to a global audience.
Which probably contributes to its very, very low acceptance rate.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about single digits here, around 9%. So, getting your research published in this journal, it's no walk in the park.
No kidding. So with those odds, what did Dr. Manrai have to say about what makes a successful submission?
Well, he really stressed that the very first hurdle is making sure your research aligns with the journal's aims and scope.
Which seems obvious, but.
You'd be surprised how many researchers don't do their due diligence there. You really need to understand the journal's audience, its past publications, and its overall focus. Because even if your research is amazing, if it's not a good fit for the journal, it's going to be a desk reject.
Alignment is key.
100%. And then, even with perfect alignment, Dr. Manrai said you need a really strong research question.
Something that grabs the reviewer's attention from the get-go.
Exactly. It has to be clear, compelling, and most importantly, original. He emphasized that the Journal of Global Marketing is looking for research that pushes the boundaries of what we already know about global marketing. They want fresh perspectives, new insights, and innovative approaches.
So not just rehashing old ideas.
Right, exactly. Your research question needs to address a gap that's significant in a global context, something with practical implications for businesses and marketers operating in today's interconnected world.
So global relevance is essential, which makes sense given the journal's name. Now, what about methodology? Did Dr. Manrai talk about that at all?
He did, and he was very clear that a robust methodology is non-negotiable. He actually used a great analogy. He said, to think of your methodology as the foundation of your research house. If the foundation is weak, the whole thing crumbles, right?
That makes sense.
So not only does your methodology need to be rigorous and appropriate for the research question, but he emphasized choosing methods that are going to yield compelling data. Data that can really support your findings and convince those reviewers.
And I'm guessing he talked about the importance of clarity in writing, too.
Oh, absolutely. He said, and I quote, "Clarity is king." And, this is something that I think often gets overlooked in academic writing. Researchers sometimes get so caught up in the technical details and jargon that they forget they need to communicate their findings in a way that's accessible and engaging for a wider audience. He stressed the importance of writing clearly, concisely, and avoiding unnecessary jargon. Basically, making the reviewer's job as easy as possible.
And on that note, what did he say about feedback? Because I'm sure he's a big proponent of getting feedback before submitting.
He was adamant about it. He actually said that seeking feedback should be a non-negotiable step in the research process, and that researchers should view feedback as a gift. It's an opportunity to get a fresh perspective on your work and identify areas for improvement.
So don't just send your manuscript off to the journal without having a few trusted colleagues give it a read first.
Exactly. He emphasized that revisions are often expected, sometimes even major ones. So going into the peer review process with a willingness to revise and refine your work based on that feedback, that's crucial.
That's really great advice for any researcher, regardless of where they're trying to get published. Now, before we wrap up, are there any resources that Dr. Manrai mentioned that might be helpful for our listeners who are thinking about submitting to the Journal of Global Marketing?
Yes, actually. He specifically highlighted a recent editorial that he and several other editors of the journal published. It's called Crafting Excellence, Publication Tips from the Editors of the Journal of Global Marketing, and it came out on September 28th of this year. It's got even more detailed guidance for anyone looking to get published in the journal. Oh, and the DOI for that is 10.1089911762.2024.2405771. And I know some people prefer video, so I'll just mention that the Journal of Global Marketing also has a YouTube channel. You can find it by searching for their name on YouTube.
Perfect. We'll be sure to link to those in the show notes. Any final takeaways from the podcast episode?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that getting published in a top-tier journal like this one, it takes a lot more than just good research.
It's about finding the right fit, crafting a compelling narrative, and being persistent throughout the entire process.
Exactly, and being receptive to feedback. But, as Dr. Manrai said, seeing your work published in a journal like this, it's incredibly rewarding. It's a testament to your hard work, your dedication, and your contribution to the field of global marketing.
Couldn't agree more. Now, for all of you listening, what global marketing questions are you passionate about exploring? What research areas get you fired up? That's where you start. Think about those big, globally relevant issues and go from there.